Moving on now, cash-strapped Sri Lanka has cut lending rates for the first time in nearly 3 years. The island nation, which faced a historic economic downturn last year, has cut its lending rate after a massive fall in inflation in May. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka has reduced its lending rate by 2.5 percentage points to 14%. This after inflation declined from nearly 35% in April to about 25% in May. Thursday's rate cut, it's the first since July 2020, when rates were lowered by 1 percentage point. The island nation's economy, which hit global headlines last year, is recovering well after a record 7.8% economic contraction last year. Recently, the country also received a $3 billion IMF bailout. 2022 was a year to forget for Sri Lankans. Their central bank began raising rates from early last year, just weeks before the government defaulted on its debt. Soon, Sri Lanka ran out of cash to pay for even the most essential of imports. This led to shortage of food, fuel and medicines. For more on this, we're now being joined by our correspondent Dasuni Athoda from Colombo. Thank you so much for joining us, Dasuni. Of course, it's a big news here after a severe economic crisis. What lies ahead for Sri Lanka?
Well, of course, Hem, this appears to be a positive news for the Sri Lankan economy, provided that much of the news that we did cover and did hear over the last year was quite bleak and quite on the downward trend of positivity for Sri Lanka. Now, this news is coming at a time where, at present, even last night, Sri Lanka did decide to slash fuel costs for certain fuel categories while increasing the prices of a few other fuel categories as well. However, the consumers over the past few months have noted, even though inflation has been on a downward trend in the country, the reduction in prices are yet to be reflected for the consumer.
All right, Dasuni. That being said, of course, there's a lot more that needs to be done in regards to the economic crisis that Sri Lanka still is in, despite this positive news. What is being done on that front?
On that front, the government has taken certain firm measures in terms of managing its government coffers, especially when it comes to the expenses that the government incurs when it comes to loss-making institutions, especially institutions such as the Sri Lanka Petroleum Corporation, Sri Lankan Airlines, who have now been put under a magnifying glass. And the government is also in the process of privatizing or bringing in this concept of a privatization for the country, especially for these institutes that have incurred billions of losses for the government. And the government cannot simply incur more, given the current stance where the IMF is also monitoring Sri Lanka's progress from here on out. The other concept that the country is greatly watching on, and we also as citizens are waiting to see, is how debt restructuring with creditor nations is going to play a role in Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka's economy. So that is another key area that you should keep your eyes out on in the coming few months.
All right. Well, Dasuni, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.